Assalamu alaikum. How did I learn to speak Indonesian, Bahasa Indonesia? So in this video I'm going to take you through that and give you some of the tips and tricks I learned along the way. It's an introductory video just to help those people who might want to learn Indonesian themselves. And yeah, I mean, if you want me to make any more videos on this, I'd be more than happy, inshallah. So let's get started. I basically started visiting Indonesia in 1997. Back then, when I arrived in Indonesia, I didn't speak a word. I remember I went offshore in Irian Jaya one time back in the day. That must have been in 97. Yeah, that was in 97. And I got really, really sick. And I had to be what they call medevaced. I had to be flown by chopper from the rig, which was offshore, back onto land. They brought a chopper just for me, which is very, very expensive. They don't like to do that, but they did it because I think they thought I had malaria. But luckily it was just dysentery. Well, I say luckily, that was horrible as well. But anyway, so I ended up landing and the people around me couldn't speak any English. They all spoke Indonesian. So I was really scared. I thought if I go to hospital here, I'll end up having a heart bypass operation instead of being looked at for malaria. So I waited to go back to Jakarta and I suffered a lot. It was 2-3 days waiting for a flight. I suffered a lot. So when I was there, I resolved to learn some Indonesian so that at least if I had any issues, I could communicate basically. And then when I got started, and I never enjoyed languages at school. I learned French at school and a little bit of German, but I didn't enjoy it at all. So I didn't think I was going to enjoy learning Indonesian, but as I got started, I loved it. It was great. And then when I met my wife, I had even more motivation to learn. So I went to a bookshop in Indonesia, an English, well, let's say an expat bookshop, bought a phrase book and learned about 30 or 40 words within a couple of weeks. And Indonesian's a language that you can speak reasonably quickly. You can speak basic Indonesian by learning a few nouns, a few verbs, like to go, to eat, to wake up, those kind of things. There's very, the highest density of used verbs in the language are focused on quite simple words. But obviously, with any language, you have to be able to express yourself in complex ways. So the more depth in which you need to express yourself, the more complexity or layers of complexity you need in the language. And that's when it starts to get tricky, the grammar. So shortly after that, I bought a couple of books. I'll put them up on the screen over here by someone called Johanny Johns. Excellent books called Bahasa Indonesia, Book 1 and 2, Introduction to Indonesian Language and Culture. Now, I've lost mine in moving around all over the place from country to country, but I am going to eventually buy some new ones. I hope, inshallah, I'll be going to Indonesia soon and I'll try and buy them over there. They were brilliant. This book 1 as a course, if you can get through book 1, you'll be in very good shape in speaking Indonesian. And the great thing about Indonesian people is they love talking to you. And there's a lot of people in Indonesia that don't speak anything except Indonesian, which is marvelous. It's wonderful. And they love learning English, trying to speak English and practicing with you. So they'll be more than happy to let you sit down with them and just chitter chatter and talk away. So that'll be the first thing to do is just practice. Learn the kind of core verbs and nouns that you need, which you can get from any kind of phrase book in Indonesian. So when I was working, or the office which I was working was based in Jakarta, when you'd stop at the traffic lights, people still they try and sell you things to make a living. There's a lot of poor people out there trying to make ends meet, and they would sell these. So this is Kamus Inggris Indonesia. So that means a dictionary from English to Indonesian. We didn't have mobile phones, we had mobile phones, but not smartphones. And this is the one from Indonesia to English. So whenever I wanted to translate something, I'd have to have these books with me. So you can imagine, not as convenient as having Google Translate. So those two books were extremely useful to me. Those like I said, the Bahasa Indonesia Book 1 and 2, the phrase book I had, and then these Indonesian English and English Indonesian dictionary. I then purchased this one, which is Indonesian reference grammar, which help me to understand the suffixes and prefixes and adjuncts and different things like that. Indonesian, it gets quite complex as you move forward. I also bought this book. Again, I bought this one in Singapore. I refer to this a lot actually because it has some really good, well laid out lessons in there, which can be quickly applied. These are two other books. I think I got these from Peri Plus when I was in Indonesia. Basically books for reading. You go through, read them, you'll learn more vocabulary. It's quite high level Indonesian sort of thing you'd read in the Compass newspaper, and that's what I used to do when I was over there. I used to buy the Compass newspaper every day, and I'd just try and read it and understand it, and I'd have my dictionaries with me, and I'd literally I could spend up to 2 hours just reading one article because Compass is very it's heavy language. Then of course my wife, she's from Bandung, so Bandung, people from Bandung, or people who they call that they're Sundanese people, they have their own language or their own dialect. So I have a series of these dictionaries and various reference books, and I even went into a bookshop called Gramedia, which is a very famous Indonesia, Gramedia or Grahamedia, and I bought some books on for the children's Indonesian schooling syllabus. I bought some books on Bahasa Sunda, but the people that have learnt Sundanese from the expatriates are the ones that go and live in Bandung, because Sundanese is widely spoken there. The dialect is widely spoken, and of course you have Javanese, various dialects of Javanese, a lot of different dialects in Indonesia in fact, but I think the main ones, if I'm not mistaken, and please my Indonesian friends correct me if I'm wrong, Bahasa Indonesia is the main language, and then you have Bahasa Sunda, Bahasa Jawa, and then of course you've got the other various languages in Sumatra and places like that, Kalimantan, etc. When I used to visit Indonesia, whenever I visit Indonesia, I try my best to speak only in Indonesian. I practice when I'm out there. Before I close this short video, I'll tell you a story which will hopefully help you. Those people who are struggling to learn, and don't give up. You always, have these false ridges. You keep progressing, and then you feel like you stop for weeks and months sometimes. You don't make any progress, but you are actually making progress, you just don't feel it. You'll break through eventually, and you'll keep on moving up. So I was sitting with my wife's family. There was about 10 or 15 people around me, and I was trying to explain something to someone. I can't remember exactly what it was, but I was struggling. I was using every single word in Bahasa Indonesia in my dictionary in my head that I could come up with, and people were sat there concentrating on me, and they were saying, yeah, okay, like that. I must have been talking for about 10 minutes, and then at the end when I finished, the guy that I was talking to, like he was the main guy I was talking to. There was other people listening, but he was the main guy. He turned to my wife and he went, "Apa katanya?" Which means, what did he say? So like he was just being polite, listening to what I was saying, and obviously what I was saying was totally unintelligible. He didn't understand anything I said in Indonesian, and it hurt so bad. Like it was like a knife in my heart. But things like that push you on, those things shouldn't make you give up. They should push you to become better. So keep pushing, keep practicing. My grammar in Indonesian is awful. I'm sure the Indonesians that have heard some of my Indonesian or my videos in Bahasa Indonesia will testify to that. Even though Indonesian people are very, very polite, and they'll always tell you, no, it's great, but it's not that great. I never took like official lessons. I always learnt, just like on the street and in the course of my day-to-day life, and trying to read books, trying to read newspapers, listening to the radio, watching the television, and just talking and immersing myself in the culture and in the language. Sorry. What I'd like to say before I go is that in Indonesia, the culture is kind of the language. It's the same anywhere actually. You can know the culture, you can get involved in the culture by knowing the language. You won't be able to understand any of the references people make, by looking in dictionaries. You have to learn the language, sit with the people, listen to them, talk to them, learn from them, understand, to let them talk about their childhood, where they came from, and then you'll start to piece together the culture and the understanding. A classic example was, I read it in a phrase book. Indonesian people, they love to, if you go to their house, they'll ask you, "Sudah mandi belum?" They'll ask you, "Have you had a shower? Have you had a bath?" I was, and it said in the phrase book, for Westerners, this is like something you'd never ask another Westerner. It's like you're telling them you smell. But of course, in Indonesia, most people, back, let's say 50, 60 years ago, they didn't have air conditioning. Indonesia's quite a hot country, so people would be out. You get up in the morning, have a shower, you go out, to work, you come back home, have a shower, then you probably go out, do some shopping, come back again, have a shower. Like, people can have 5 showers a day. It's perfectly normal. So when someone comes to your house, to invite them to have a shower is culturally perfectly normal and acceptable and fine. So, and again, like I said, understanding culture is very, very important. Anyway, I'll leave it there. Let me know if you want to know anything more about this. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.